on the distant planet of Zeroth 7, a lush world where crystalline forests hum melodies and floating cities shimmer like jewels in the sky. Humans were seen as little more than pests. They were an oddity among the galaxy's advanced civilizations, beings with soft skin, limited lifespans, and no natural defenses to speak of. To the towering, six-limbed Zolaria proud alien race that ruled over Zeroth 7, humans were nothing but clumsy scavengers who had wandered too far from their home planet. The Zolari viewed humanity through narrowed eyes, their glowing, bioluminescent patterns flickering with disdain whenever they spoke of Earth's inhabitants. Weak, one elder muttered during a council meeting inside their opulent crystal palace. They rely on machines for everything. No claws, no wings, no telepathy. What could such creatures possibly offer? Yet, despite this contempt, humans persisted. Small colonies dotted the edges of Zeroth 7's wilderness, eking out lives under harsh conditions while trying to prove their worth. Among them was Corporal Ethan Rain, a soldier stationed at Outpost Deltanine, tasked with protecting human settlers from both environmental dangers and occasional raids by rogue factions of the Xylari elite guard. Ethan wasn't flashy or heroic. By nature he was quiet, thoughtful, and deeply loyal to his people, his mission, and especially to those who couldn't defend themselves. One fateful evening, as twin suns dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of violet and gold, Ethan received an urgent transmission from Central Command. A young Xylari princess named Lariah had gone missing near the outskirts of her family's territory. Her disappearance had sent shockwaves through the ruling class, igniting fears of political instability. The message was clear: find her quickly or face dire consequences. Ethan sighed, rubbing his temples. He knew what this meant. Humans would be blamed if anything happened to her, whether they were involved or not. But there was something else gnawing at him, a strange detail buried deep within the report. According to witnesses, moments before vanishing, Princess Lariah had been speaking to someone via hologram about Earth, about humans. It made no sense. Why would a Xylari royal take interest in humanity? As Ethan prepared his gear, loading supplies onto his hoverbike, he couldn't shake the feeling that this mission was more than just a simple rescue operation. Something bigger loomed beneath the surface, hidden like shadows in the dense crystalline woods. And then came the twist, the kind that sends shivers down even the bravest spine. Just as Ethan revved up his bike, ready to head into the unknown, a faint sound caught his attention. Turning around, he spotted a small, translucent creature resembling a mix between a bird and a jellyfish hovering nearby. Its wings shimmered with iridescent colors, casting prismatic reflections across the ground. Before Ethan could react, the creature darted toward him, dropping a tiny object at his feet, before disappearing into the twilight. Bending down, Ethan picked it up, a delicate pendant, shaped like a teardrop, engraved with intricate symbols unfamiliar, yet hauntingly beautiful. As he examined it closer, he realized it pulsed faintly, almost like a heartbeat. Whatever it was, it seemed Alavan somehow connected to the princess's disappearance. With the mysterious artifact clutched tightly in his hand, Ethan set off into the forest, unaware that his actions would soon challenge everything that Xylari believed about humans and, perhaps, change the fate of two species forever. The crystalline forest was eerily silent as Ethan navigated his hoverbike through narrow pathways illuminated by the faint glow of bioluminescent plants. The pendant he had found earlier lay securely in a pocket on his chest, its faint pulsing rhythm syncing oddly with his heartbeat. He couldn't explain why, but it felt like the artifact was guiding him, pulling him deeper into the labyrinth of towering crystal trees. As he ventured further, the air grew colder, and the vibrant colors of the forest dimmed to muted shades of gray and blue. Suddenly, his bike's sensors began to beep erratically, detecting movement ahead. Slowing down, Ethan dismounted and approached cautiously, gripping his plasma rifle tightly. Peering around a cluster of jagged crystals, he froze at what he saw. There, huddled against the base of an enormous crystal trunk, sat Princess Lariah. Her sleek silver robes were torn and smeared with dirt, her long iridescent hair tangled and matted. She looked nothing like the regal figure depicted in the Xylari broadcasts. Instead, she appeared fragile, almost childlike, clutching her knees to her chest as tears streaked down her shimmering cheeks. But something else caught Ethan's attention, a group of shadowy figures lurking nearby. They weren't Xylari. Their forms were too bulky, their movements too jerky. These were scavengers, rogue mercenaries, known as the Krilla, ruthless faction, infamous for raiding settlements and kidnapping. High-profile targets for ransom. Ethan's mind raced. If he acted now, he could eliminate the threat, but doing so would reveal his position, risking capture or worse. Yet if he didn't intervene, the princess might not survive the night. For a moment, doubt gnawed at him. What chance did one human soldier have against a pack of heavily armed krill? Then, without warning, the pendant in his pocket pulsed violently, emitting a soft chime that echoed through the forest. Startled, Ethan instinctively reached for it and realized the sound had drawn the krill's attention. Their glowing red eyes turned toward him, weapons raised, ready to attack. Time seemed to slow as Ethan made a split-second decision. Rather than firing back, he stepped forward, raising both hands in surrender. His heart pounded as he shouted, "Wait, I'm here to help." The krill hesitated, their leader a hulking brute with jagged metal implants fused into his skins. In confusion, "Help, you're just a human," the brute growled, his voice distorted and guttural. "What can you possibly do?" Ethan took another step closer, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. "I can give you what you want," he said firmly, "but not like this, not by hurting her." For a tense moment, no one moved. Then, unexpectedly, Princess Leariah stood up, her tear-streaked face hardening with determination. "Don't listen to him," she cried out, surprising everyone including Ethan. "He's trying to trick you." Her words only deepened Krill's confusion. Their leader glanced between Ethan and the princess, clearly unsure how to proceed. Humans were supposed to be weak, cowardly creatures, yet here was one standing unarmed before them, negotiating with calm resolve. It defied everything they'd been taught to believe. Seizing the opportunity, Ethan pressed on. "You think taking her will solve your problems? The Xylari won't negotiate, they'll hunt you down and destroy you. But there's another way." He paused, locking eyes with the leader. "Let me take her safely back to her people, and I'll ensure you receive protection, a deal brokered by humans." The krill exchanged uneasy glances. They hadn't anticipated dealing with a human mediator, let alone one who spoke with such conviction. After what felt like an eternity, their leader finally lowered his weapon. "Fine," he grunted. "Take her, but remember you promised US safety." With that, the krill retreated into the shadows, leaving Ethan and the princess alone. As soon as they were gone, Leariah collapsed to her knees, trembling with exhaustion. Ethan rushed to her side, offering a hand. "Are you hurt?" he asked gently. She stared at him, her luminous eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and suspicion. "Why did you do that?" she whispered. "Why risk yourself for me?" Ethan smiled faintly, helping her to her feet. "Because it's what we do," he replied simply. "We protect each other, even when it seems impossible." Leariah didn't respond immediately, but as they began walking back toward the outpost, Ethan noticed something remarkable. Despite their initial mistrust, the princess kept glancing at him curiously, as though seeing humans in a new light. Perhaps, just perhaps, this encounter had planted a seed of understanding, one that neither of them fully understood yet. Unbeknownst to them, however, their journey was far from over. Deep within the forest, unseen observers watched their every move, intrigued by the peculiar bond forming between the soldier and the princess. Little did Ethan know, his actions had already set off a chain reaction that would challenge the very foundation of interspecies relations on Zerath 7. The journey back to Outpost Deltanine was anything but smooth. Ethan and Princess Leariah moved cautiously through the crystalline forest, their footsteps muffled by the soft moss-like ground that glowed faintly underfoot. The pendant Ethan had found earlier continued its rhythmic pulsing, almost as if it were alive and guiding them forward, though they weren't being openly pursued. The sense of being watched lingered, a prickling sensation at the back of Ethan's neck. Leariah walked silently beside him, her posture guarded but her expression thoughtful. She kept stealing glances at the human soldier who had risked his life for her species she had always dismissed as weak and insignificant. Yet here he was, calm and resolute, navigating the treacherous terrain with quiet determination. It unnerved her and intrigued her. As they paused near a bubbling stream of liquid crystal, Leariah finally broke the silence. "You said you protect each other," she began hesitantly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why would you extend that to me? Humans hate us." Ethan knelt by the stream, refilling his canteen before answering. He looked up at her, his gaze steady. "Not all humans hate the Xylari," he replied. "And even if we did, that wouldn't stop us from doing what's right. Protecting someone isn't about whether they're friend or fit, it's about knowing it's the right thing to do." His words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Lariah stared at him, her glowing eyes wide with disbelief. For centuries, the Xylari had prided themselves on their superiority, their intellect, their strength, their advanced technology. But this human, this fragile, unremarkable creature, spoke of morality and compassion as if they were second nature. It unsettled her deeply. Before she could respond, a low rumble echoed through the forest. The ground trembled slightly, and both Ethan and Lariah turned toward the saucer, massive shadow looming between the crystalline trees. Emerging into view was a Xylari patrol unit, led by Commander Vera, one of the most feared officers in the Royal Guard. Her 6 limbs shimmered with iridescent armor, and her bioluminescent markings pulsed angrily as she locked onto the pair. "Princess," Vera barked, striding forward with authority. Her piercing gaze shifted to Ethan, narrowing dangerously. "What is this?" Lariah stepped forward quickly, placing herself between Ethan and the commander. "He saved me," she said firmly, surprising even herself. "The Krill had me cornered, but he negotiated my release." Vera's mandibles twitched in irritation. "Negotiated," she spat. "With scavengers? Absurd. Humans are incapable of such feats." She gestured dismissively at Ethan. "Take him into custody. We'll deal with him later." Ethan raised his hands again, though not in surrender this time. "Commander," he said calmly, "I understand your frustration, but I'm not your enemy. If you let me explain enough." Vera snapped, drawing her energy blade. "Your kind has no place speaking to me." Tension crackled in the air as the Xylari soldiers surrounded Ethan, their weapons trained on him. Lariah hesitated, torn between duty and gratitude. She knew Vera wouldn't hesitate to execute the human on the spot, but something inside her rebelled against the idea. This man had shown courage, ingenuity, and kindness, qualities she realized were rare, even among her own people. Summoning every ounce of resolve, Lariah stepped closer to Vera. "No," she said, her voice firm despite the quiver beneath it. "He stays with me. If you harm him, you'll answer to my father and to me." Vera froze, clearly taken aback. Never before had the princess defied an order, let alone challenged a high-ranking officer. After a long, tense moment, she reluctantly lowered her weapon. "Very well," she growled, "but don't think this is over, human." As the patrol unit resumed their march toward the capital city, Ethan fell into step beside Lariah, shot him a grateful yet conflicted look. "Why did you defend me?" he asked quietly. She glanced away, her luminous cheeks flushing faintly. Because you reminded me of something I'd forgotten," she admitted. "That strength isn't just about power or force. Sometimes, it's about choosing to do what's right even when it's hard." Her words struck a chord within Ethan, reinforcing his belief in humanity's core values. But as they neared the edge of the forest, the challenges ahead became clearer. Word of Ethan's involvement in rescuing the princess had already spread, igniting outrage among the Xylari elite. To them, a human interfering in royal matters was unacceptably an affront to their pride and authority. Back at the floating palace, whispers of rebellion simmered. Some argued that allowing a human to walk freely among them set a dangerous precedent. Others saw potential in this strange alliance, believing it might open new avenues for diplomacy. Meanwhile, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that the pendant around his neck held secrets far greater than he understood, secrets that could either unite or destroy. The fragile piece teetering on the brink. Unbeknownst to everyone, the artifact pulsed brighter with each passing moment, responding to an ancient force hidden deep within the heart of Zareth 7. And as the stars aligned above the planet, it became clear that the true test of humanity's worth and the Xylari's assumptions was only beginning. The floating palace of the Xylari shimmered like a mirage against the twilight sky, its crystalline spires reflecting the fading light in cascading rainbows. Inside, however, the atmosphere was anything but serene. The Grand Council chamber buzzed with tension as voices rose and fell in heated debate. At the center of it all stood Ethan, flanked by Princess Lariah, who refused to leave his side despite the disapproving glares of the royal court. Commander Vera paced before the assembled elders, her mandibles clicking angrily as she recounted the events of the rescue mission. "This human," she spat, pointing a serrated limb at Ethan, has overstepped boundaries that should never have been crossed. He negotiated with criminals, defied direct orders, and now dares to stand among us as if he belongs here. Ethan remained calm, though his knuckles whitened as he clenched his fists behind his back. Beside him, Lyria bristled visibly. "You saved my life," she interjected, her voice ringing out across the chamber. "Without him, I would still be at the mercy of those scavengers or worse. Is gratitude so foreign to you?" Her words sent ripples through the room. Gasps echoed from the elders, their bioluminescent patterns flickering erratically with shock and indignation. For a princess to speak so boldly and on behalf of a human was unprecedented. Yet amidst the murmurs of outrage, a few members of the council exchanged thoughtful glances. Something about this situation didn't fit the narrative they had long believed about humanity. One elder, an ancient Xylari named Keleth, whose body glowed faintly with age, leaned forward. His voice carried the weight of centuries when he spoke. "Enough," he said, silencing the chamber with a single word. "Let us hear the human's account. Perhaps there is more to this than meets the eye." Ethan exhaled slowly, grateful for the opportunity. Stepping forward, he addressed the council not as a subordinate or an outsider, but as someone determined to bridge the gap between species. "I don't claim to understand your ways," he began, his voice steady and respectful, "but what I do know is this. Survival isn't just about strength or power. It's about working together, finding solutions where none seem possible. That's what humans bring to the table, not brute force, but creativity, adaptability, and compassion." His words hung in the air, met with a mix of skepticism and curiosity. Then, unexpectedly, the pendant around his neck pulsed brightly, emitting a soft chime that resonated throughout the chamber. Everyone froze, their attention shifting to the artifact. Even Ethan looked down in surprise as the teardrop-shaped object floated gently upward, hovering before him like a living thing. Lyria gasped, recognizing the symbols etched into its surface. That's impossible," she whispered, her voice trembling. "It's one of the relics from the ancients, the beings who once ruled Zereth 7 before us." The revelation sent shockwaves through the council. The ancients were a mythical race, spoken of only in legends, a civilization far older and wiser than the Xylari. They were said to have vanished eons ago, leaving behind artifacts imbued with mysterious powers. If this pendant truly belonged to them, then its appearance in Ethan's possession could mean only one thing. The universe had chosen him for a purpose greater than anyone understood. Keleth rose slowly, his glowing eyes fixed intently on Ethan. "Human," he said, his tone reverent yet probing. "How did you come by this relic?" Ethan hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. "I found it in the forest," he admitted. "A small creature brought it to me, right before I encountered Princess Lyria. I thought it might be important, so I kept it." The room erupted into whispers once more, but this time the tone was different. Fear mingled with awe, as the council grappled with the implications. Could this human truly be connected to the ancients? Or was he merely a pawn in some larger, cosmic game? As the debate continued, Ethan noticed subtle changes in the attitudes of those around him. Some, like Commander Vera, remained hostile, unwilling to entertain the idea of a human playing any significant role in their world. Others, however, seemed intrigued, even hopeful. Among them was Lyria, whose expression softened as she watched Ethan interact with her people. Finally, Keleth raised a hand for silence. "We cannot ignore the signs," he declared. "The ancients' relics are not given lightly. This human may hold the key to understanding forces beyond our control. Until we know more, he will remain under our protection." Though the decision was far from unanimous, the council reluctantly agreed. Ethan was granted temporary asylum within the palace, though under close supervision. As he and Lyria left the chamber together, the princess turned to him with a mixture of wonder and concern. "You realize what this means, don't you?" she asked quietly. "They'll be watching your every move now." Ethan nodded, his jaw set with determination. "I'm used to being underestimated," he replied. "But if this pendant can help bring our two peoples closer, then I'll do whatever it takes." Little did they know, the pendant's activation had triggered something far greater, an awakening deep beneath the surface of Zereth 7. Ancient machinery long dormant began to stir, sending tremors through the planet's core, and high above, distant stars aligned in patterns unseen for millennia, heralding a shift that would test the very fabric of existence, for better or worse. Humanity's moment had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same. The days that followed were a blur of tension and discovery. Ethan found himself in the heart of the Xylari capital, surrounded by both hostility and intrigue. The pendant remained his constant companion, its faint glow pulsing like a heartbeat as if it were alive and aware. Scientists from the royal court pored over it tirelessly, their instruments scanning every inch of the relic for answers. Yet no matter how advanced their technology, they could not decipher its secrets. It seemed to respond only to Ethan. Meanwhile, the tremors beneath Zaroth 7 grew stronger, shaking the floating cities with increasing frequency. Crystalline towers cracked, and rivers of liquid crystal overflowed their banks, flooding parts of the forest below. Rumors spread among the populace. Some whispered of divine wrath, while others claimed the ancients had returned to reclaim their world. Fear gripped the planet, and the council was divided on how to respond. Commander Vera saw this chaos as an opportunity. "This is proof," she declared during an emergency session. "The human's presence has awakened something dangerous. Remove him, and perhaps we can restore balance." But Keleth, ever the voice of reason, countered her argument. "Or perhaps the human is the key to understanding what's happening," he said calmly. "We cannot act rashly, not when so much hangs in the balance." Ethan listened intently. From the sidelines, feeling the weight of responsibility settle heavily on his shoulders. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting for humanity's place in the galaxy. Every decision he made now would shape how the Xylari and potentially countless other species viewed humans forever. One evening, as the twin moons cast silvery light across the palace gardens, Ethan met privately with Princess Learia, had become his unlikely ally, someone who believed in the potential of cooperation between their peoples. Sitting beside a shimmering fountain, she turned to him with concern etched into her luminous features. "You're carrying too much alone," she said softly. "Let me help you." Ethan smiled faintly, touched by her sincerity but reluctant to burden her further. "I don't even know where to begin," he admitted. "This pendant, these tremors, I feel like I'm missing something obvious." Learia leaned closer, studying the artifact around his neck. Her eyes widened as she noticed something new, a faint pattern glowing along its edges, forming symbols that resembled constellations. "Wait," she murmured. "These markings, they match the alignment of the stars right now." Her revelation struck a chord within Ethan. He remembered fragments of ancient Earth myths about celestial alignments, signaling moments of great change. Could the pendant be tied to the stars themselves? Was it guiding them toward something larger? Determined to find out, Ethan convinced Keleth to allow him access to the royal archives, a vast repository of knowledge spanning millennia. There, alongside Learia, he scoured texts and holographic records, searching for any mention of similar events. Hours turned into days as they pieced together clues, uncovering references to a forgotten prophecy. Asterisk, when the stars align, the chosen one shall rise, uniting the fractured to face the dawn. Asterisk, though cryptic, the words resonated deeply. If Ethan truly was the chosen one mentioned in the prophecy, then time was running out. The tremors were worsening, and reports poured in of strange phenomena, crystals growing uncontrollably, wildlife behaving erratically, and entire regions sinking into the earth. As pressure mounted, Ethan faced another challenge, convincing the Xylari to work together with humans. During a public assembly, he addressed the gathered crowd, speaking not as an outsider but as someone invested in their shared future. "We may look different, think differently, and come from different worlds," he began, his voice steady and impassioned. "But we all call this galaxy home. Whatever force is causing these disturbances doesn't care whether you're or human. We need each other if we're going to survive." His words stirred something in the audience. For the first time, some Xylari began to see humans not as inferior beings, but as equals, capable of resilience and ingenuity. Even Commander Vera, though still skeptical, couldn't deny the unity taking root among her people yet. Despite these small victories, doubt lingered. Not everyone trusted Ethan or humanity. Whispers of betrayal echoed through the corridors of the palace, and factions within the council plotted behind closed doors. Ethan knew that trust was fragile, easily shattered if he failed to deliver results. Then came the moment that changed everything. Late one night, as Ethan studied the pendant under dim lighting, it pulsed violently, emitting a blinding flash of light. When the brightness faded, a holographic map appeared before him, projecting coordinates deep within the crystalline forests. The destination was marked by a massive structure, an ancient temple buried beneath layers of earth and time. Without hesitation, Ethan shared the discovery with Keleth and Lyra. "This is it," he said, his voice filled with urgency. "Whatever's happening, the answers lie there." Keleth nodded gravely. "Then we must go, but beware, the path ahead will test us all." As preparations began for the journey, Ethan felt the enormity of the task ahead. The stakes had never been higher. Failure meant not only the destruction of Zereth 7, but also the loss of any chance for peace between humans and the Success, however, might pave the way for a new era, one built on mutual respect and understanding. With Lyra by his side and a contingent of Xylari soldiers accompanying them, Ethan set off toward the ancient temple. Each step brought them closer to the truth and to the ultimate test of humanity's strength, courage, and heart. The journey to the ancient temple was fraught with peril. The crystalline forest had transformed into a labyrinth of shifting terrain, where glowing crystals grew at unnatural speeds and rivers of molten crystal cut jagged paths through the ground. Each step felt like walking on the edge of chaos, as if the planet itself were resisting their intrusion. Yet Ethan pressed forward, driven by a sense of purpose that burned brighter than ever. Lyra walked beside him, her luminous eyes scanning the horizon for danger. Though she tried to mask it, Ethan could see the fear beneath her composed exterior. This wasn't just about saving Zereth 7 anymore, it was personal for her now. She had seen humanity's resilience firsthand, witnessed Ethan's unwavering determination, and begun to question everything she thought she knew about her own people as they neared the coordinates marked by the pendant. The air grew heavy, charged with an energy that made their skin tingle. The ruins of the ancient temple loomed ahead, half buried in the earth but still radiating power. Its towering spires were etched with intricate carvings, depicting scenes of celestial alignments and beings far greater than either humans or Za. At its center stood a massive archway, pulsing faintly with light. "This is it," Ethan murmured, clutching the pendant tightly. "Whatever happens next, we're ready." But before they could proceed, Commander Vera stepped forward, her expression unreadable. "You've led us this far, human," she said, her voice low. "But don't think for a moment that I trust you or whatever you plan to do inside there." Ethan met her gaze without flinching. "I'm not asking for your trust," he replied, evenly, "just your cooperation. If we fail, none of us will make it out alive." Vera hesitated, then nodded curtly, signaling her soldiers to stand down. For all her hostility, even she couldn't deny the gravity of the situation. They were no longer dealing with petty politics or species rivalry. They were facing something far greater. Inside the temple, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. The walls seemed to hum with life, and the floor glowed softly beneath their feet. As they ventured deeper, the pendant around Ethan's neck grew warmer, its rhythm syncing with the pulses emanating from the structure itself. It was as though the relic recognized its origins, yearning to reunite with them. At last, they reached the heart of the temple, a vast chamber dominated by a pedestal shaped like a starburst. Floating above it was another artifact, identical to the one Ethan carried but larger and more radiant. When he approached, the pendant detached itself from his neck, hovering toward the central artifact. With a brilliant flash, the two merged, forming a single, dazzling object. Suddenly, the chamber came alive. Holographic projections filled the space, showing images of the ancients, the mythical beings who had once ruled Zereth 7. Their voices echoed ethereally, speaking in a language neither human nor Xylari understood. Somehow, everyone present grasped its meaning. The stars align once more, the voices intoned. The cycle begins anew. Only unity can restore balance. Choose wisely. Before anyone could react, the ground trembled violently, and cracks began spreading across the chamber floor. From the fissures emerged tendrils of pure energy, writhing like living things. These were fragments of the ancients' consciousness, remnants of their power seeking release. If left unchecked, they would consume the planet and, perhaps, the entire galaxy. Ethan turned to the group, his expression resolute. "We have to work together," he said firmly. "This isn't just about stopping the tremors. It's about proving that humans and Xylari can coexist if we choose to." Lyra stepped forward, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Tell us what to do." Drawing on every ounce of ingenuity and courage, Ethan devised a plan. Using the combined technology of the Xylari and Earth's scientific knowledge, they constructed a containment field powered by the merged artifact. It required precise coordination. Xylari engineers working alongside human technicians, each side contributing their unique strengths. Commander Vera, initially resistant, eventually joined the effort, realizing that her pride meant nothing compared to the survival of her people. Even Kelith lent his wisdom, guiding the team through the intricacies of the ancients' designs. As the final piece fell into place, the containment field activated, drawing the chaotic energy back into the artifact. The tremors ceased, and the planet stabilized. For a moment, silence reigned, broken only by the collective sigh of relief from everyone present. When the dust settled, the Xylari looked at Ethan and at each other with new eyes. What had once been disdain or indifference had transformed into respect and admiration. Humans weren't weak or insignificant. They were resourceful, adaptable, and capable of forging bonds where none existed before. Standing before the assembled group, Liraya spoke, her voice steady yet filled with emotion. "Today, we learned something invaluable," she said. "That strength doesn't come from domination or superiority, comes from unity. And unity begins with understanding." Ethan smiled faintly, feeling a profound sense of accomplishment. He hadn't just saved a planet. He had bridged a divide centuries old. But deep down, he knew this was only the beginning. The aftermath of the temple's activation brought an eerie calm to Zereth 7. The once trembling planet now rested in peaceful stillness, its crystalline forests glowing softly under the twin moon's light. The floating cities, though scarred by recent chaos, stood as symbols of resilience, testaments to what could be achieved when two vastly different species worked together. Inside the royal palace, a grand assembly convened. Xylari elders, soldiers, and citizens gathered alongside the human settlers from Outpost Deltanin, their presence marking a historic moment. Never before had humans been welcomed so openly into the heart of Xylari society. Ethan stood at the center of it all, flanked by Princess Liraya, whose luminous eyes sparkled with pride and gratitude. Commander Vera stepped forward, her usual stern demeanor softened by the weight of recent events. "We owe you and your kind a debt we cannot repay," she said, addressing Ethan directly. Her voice carried sincerity, though it was clear she still struggled to reconcile her past prejudices. "You have shown us that strength lies not in dominance, but in unity." Ethan nodded, his expression humble yet resolute. "This isn't about owing anyone anything," he replied. "It's about moving forward together. We've proven that when we set aside our differences, there's no challenge we can't overcome." The room erupted into murmurs of agreement, punctuated by flashes of bioluminescent patterns as the Xylari expressed their approval. Kelith rose slowly, his ancient form radiating wisdom. "Today marks the dawn of a new era," he declared, his voice resonant. "An era where humanity and the Xylari stand side by side, not as adversaries, but as allies. Let this be remembered as the day the stars aligned to unite us." As the ceremony concluded, Ethan found himself outside on a balcony overlooking the city. The night sky stretched endlessly above him, dotted with countless stars. Each one seemed to pulse faintly, mirroring the rhythm of the pendant he had carried for so long. Though the artifact itself now rested safely within the temple, its influence lingered, a reminder of the power of connection and understanding. Liraya joined him moments later, her silver robes shimmering in the moonlight. She leaned against the railing, gazing out at the horizon. "Do you think they'll remember?" she asked quietly, referring to both their peoples. "What we did here," Ethan smiled, turning to face her. "They might forget the details," he admitted, "but they'll never forget how it felt. How it feels to trust someone who's different, to work together despite everything that divides you. That feeling is powerful enough to last generations." She nodded thoughtfully, her luminous cheeks flushing faintly. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible, "for saving me. For saving us all." "It wasn't just me," Ethan said gently. "It was all of us. Humans, Xylari. We couldn't have done it alone." Their conversation was interrupted by a soft chime, one that echoed faintly across the city. Looking up, they saw streaks of light arcing through the heavens, forming constellations that hadn't been visible for millennia. It was as if the universe itself was celebrating their triumph. In the days that followed, changes rippled throughout Zareth 7. Trade agreements were forged between human colonies and xylari settlements, fostering mutual prosperity. Joint research initiatives explored the mysteries of the ancients' artifacts, uncovering knowledge that benefited both species. Most importantly, friendships began to blossom, small acts of kindness and cooperation that laid the foundation for a brighter future. Back on Earth, news of Ethan's heroics spread quickly. For years, humanity had been dismissed as insignificant in the galactic community. Now, thanks to his actions, they were seen as equals, beings capable of courage, ingenuity, and compassion. Leaders across the planet took note, realizing that humanity's greatest strength lay not in its technology or weapons, but in its ability to connect with others. As Ethan prepared to return home, Liraya accompanied him to the launch pad. Standing beside his spacecraft, she hesitated, clearly reluctant to say goodbye. "Will I see you again?" she asked, her voice tinged with hope. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder, offering a reassuring smile. "Count on it," he promised. "This isn't the end, it's just the beginning." With those words, he boarded the ship and launched into the stars. As he looked back at Zereth 7, shrinking in the distance, he felt a profound sense of fulfillment. He had faced unimaginable challenges, bridged centuries-old divides, and proven that humanity's potential knew no bounds. And somewhere, deep within the cosmos, the stars continued to align, shining brightly, as if cheering for the bond that had been forged between worlds. Final scene. Years later, a young girl on Earth gazed up at the night sky, clutching a book titled Unity Among Stars. Her mother knelt beside her, pointing to a distant constellation. "That's Zereth 7, she explained. "A place where humans and aliens learn to stand together." The child's eyes widened with wonder. Did we really help save them? Her mother smiled, her gaze drifting fondly toward the heavens. "Yes, sweetheart, we did, and someday, maybe you'll do the same." As the stars twinkled above, their light seemed to whisper a single truth. Humanity, heck yeah.